Welcome to another chilling episode of Twisted Criminals, where we delve into the darkest corners of criminal minds. Today's tale is not for the faint-hearted, graphic and disturbing in nature. Now brace yourselves as we dive into the twisted world of Samuel Little.
Did you ever shoot any of these girls?
Shoot.
Yeah, with a gun?
I get no kicks out of shooting.
All right.
Born in Georgia in 1940, Samuel Little's life began in a world far removed from the horrific path it would later take. Raised in the heart of the American South, Little's early years were marred by a tumultuous home life and a budding propensity for trouble. From a young age, it was clear that Little was not like other children. He was born to a mother who was said to be a lady of the night, and his father was nowhere to be found. This lack of a stable, nurturing environment paved the way for a life of difficulty and rebellion. Little's criminal tendencies began to emerge during his adolescence. Petty theft, breaking and entering, and even assault became part of his routine, a way to assert control in a world that had offered him little. He was a drifter, moving from town to town, state to state, leaving a trail of petty crimes in his wake. As he grew older, his crimes escalated in severity, and he found himself in and out of correctional facilities. But these were merely the early tremors of a seismic shift that was yet to come. Little's journey from a troubled youth to a petty criminal was only the beginning. However, no one could have predicted the monstrous transformation that lay ahead. Little's criminal career began in his late 20s with a series of petty crimes. Journey back with me, if you will, to the late 1960s. Samuel Little, a young man in his late 20s, was just starting on a path that would lead him to become one of America's most notorious criminals. His early criminal record was not particularly unique or chilling, peppered with offenses that ranged from shoplifting to breaking and entering. Yet, these seemingly insignificant infractions were the first stepping stones on a path that would spiral into far darker territory. As the years rolled on, Little's crimes began to escalate. Petty theft evolved into fraud, and burglary gave way to assault. His rap sheet grew longer and darker, yet Little managed to avoid significant jail time, slipping through the cracks of the justice system time and time again. It was as if he was testing the waters, seeing how far he could push before facing real consequences. But these relatively minor offenses were merely a prelude to the horrors that lay ahead. By the mid-70s, Little had begun to show signs of a more violent nature. He was arrested several times for crimes such as driving under the influence and assault. These incidents hinted at an increasing volatility, a growing disregard for the safety and well-being of others. This mounting aggression, coupled with Little's apparent lack of remorse or desire to change, was a potent mix that set the stage for the monstrous acts that would follow. He had tasted the thrill of crime and had grown accustomed to the shadows. The leap from petty criminal to murderer was not far off. It was during this time that Little began to travel extensively across the United States, drifting from city to city, state to state. This nomadic lifestyle would later make it difficult for authorities to track his movements and connect the dots between his crimes. But these petty crimes were just the beginning of a terrifying journey. In the early 1970s, Little's crimes took a deadly turn. Samuel Little, a man whose name would soon become synonymous with terror, began his murderous spree. His victims, mostly women living on society's fringes, were easy targets. Marginalized, vulnerable, and often overlooked, they were drawn in by his charm, only to meet a horrific end. His first known victim was a woman in Miami, Florida. She was found strangled, her life extinguished at the hands of a man who would soon become America's most prolific serial killer. Little left her body in an abandoned apartment, a grim tableau that would become his signature. Little's modus operandi was chilling in its simplicity. He would sweet-talk his victims, gaining their trust before overpowering them with his considerable strength. His preferred method was strangulation, a personal, intimate way of killing that allowed him to watch the life drain from his victims' eyes. Despite the growing number of victims, Little managed to evade capture. His transient lifestyle, constantly moving from state to state, made it difficult for law enforcement to connect the dots. Furthermore, the lack of physical evidence at his crime scenes and the often overlooked status of his victims allowed him to fly under the radar. While the bodies piled up, Little continued his spree, seemingly undeterred by the risk of capture. He was growing bolder, even reckless, leaving behind an alarming number of victims. In Mississippi, he killed again. In Ohio, another life was snuffed out. The list of states where Little left his mark grew longer, a grim testament to his deadly reach. He seemed unstoppable, a phantom slipping through the fingers of law enforcement. As the decade rolled on, the body count continued to rise. The name Samuel Little was yet to be linked to these horrific crimes, but the shadow he cast was growing darker. The stage was set for a nationwide manhunt that would span decades and shake the very foundations of American law enforcement. Little was growing bolder, leaving a trail of victims in his wake. As the body count increased, law enforcement began to connect the dots. As the grim tally of Little's victims grew, investigators across the country were beginning to notice a pattern. Murders with strikingly similar details were cropping up in states that seemed to have no connection, except for one: Samuel Little. The hunt for Little began in earnest, with investigators piecing together a jigsaw puzzle of a man who left a trail of devastation in his wake. Detectives and forensic experts were now working against the clock, as they feared Little would strike again. Little was a shadow, a phantom that seemed to always be one step ahead. He was a chameleon, blending into the crowd and leaving town before anyone suspected him. But he had a weakness, a penchant for petty crimes. It was this very flaw that would eventually bring him into the crosshairs of the law. In 2012, a cold case detective in Los Angeles was reviewing unsolved murders when she noticed a connection. The victims, all women, had been strangled and left in alleyways or dumpsters. The detective matched DNA from the crime scenes to Little, who was in custody in Kentucky for a narcotics charge. The walls were closing in on Little. Extradited to Los Angeles, he was now the prime suspect in a series of unsolved murders. The evidence was overwhelming, and Little was caught in a web of his own making. The net tightened around Little when another detective, working on a cold case in Texas, linked him to a murder there. Little's past was catching up with him, and the law enforcement puzzle was finally complete. The manhunt had come to an end. Samuel Little, the chameleon, the phantom, was now in the glaring spotlight of justice. He was no longer a face in the crowd, but a man facing the consequences of his monstrous actions. Finally, in 2012, Samuel Little's reign of terror came to an end. Behind bars, Little began to reveal the true extent of his monstrous deeds. As the walls of his prison cell closed in around him, the world outside was about to be shocked by the sheer magnitude of his crimes. It started with a trickle, a confession here and there, small details about one crime or another. But as the floodgates opened, the confessions turned into a torrent. Little began to recount his deeds with an eerie calmness, a chilling detachment that unsettled even the most seasoned investigators.
What the hell was doing it? Yeah. I'll go back to the same city sometime and pluck me another grape. How many grapes y'all got on the vine here? Ooh,
Sure.
That one right there.
There's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Each confession was a story of its own, a tale of horror and cruelty that left an indelible mark on those who heard it. He described his victims, their lives, their last moments with a chilling precision. His memory was uncanny, recalling the smallest details, the color of a dress, the pattern of a shoe, the curve of a smile. His confessions led investigators to cold cases across the country, giving closure to families who had been waiting for answers for decades. It was a grim victory, a painful solace, but a solace nonetheless. When it came to the trial, the evidence was overwhelming. His confessions, corroborated by the physical evidence and victim testimonies, painted a damning picture. The courtroom was a sea of faces, each one a testament to the lives he had shattered. The reactions of the victims' families were a mix of relief, grief, and a deep-seated anger. There was a sense of closure, yes, but also a profound sadness for what had been lost, for the lives that could have been. The verdict was unanimous. Samuel Little was convicted on multiple counts of murder, earning him several life sentences. It was a fitting end for a man who had caused so much pain, so much suffering. Samuel Little, one of the most prolific serial killers in American history, was finally brought to justice. The impact of Little's crimes continues to reverberate long after his conviction. The echo of his deeds, like a chilling wind, still sweeps through the corridors of justice and the hearts of those left behind. Investigations into Little's confessions persist, a testament to the enormity of his disdain for human life. Law enforcement agencies across the United States continue to sift through the labyrinth of his claims, confirming the veracity of his chilling tales one by one. Each confession brought to light opens a new chapter in this macabre narrative, a grim reminder of his reign of terror that spanned over 3 decades. Many of Little's victims remain nameless, their identities lost to time and circumstance. These forgotten souls, reduced to mere footnotes in Little's dark chronicle, serve as a harsh reminder of society's blind spots. Their stories, though untold, are no less significant. Their lives, though unacknowledged, mattered. As each day passes, efforts to give these victims their names back, to restore their dignity, carry on. The scars Little carved into the communities he terrorized are deep and unhealed. Families ripped apart, neighborhoods living in fear, trust in fellow humans eroded. These are the invisible casualties of his monstrous acts. The psychological toll is immeasurable, the social damage irreparable. Yet amidst the devastation, resilience emerges. Communities rally together, vowing to remember, to heal, and to prevent such atrocities from happening again. In the end, Samuel Little's story is more than a tale of a man's descent into darkness. It's a stark reminder of our collective responsibility to protect the vulnerable, to seek justice for the forgotten, and to ensure that no one, no matter how insignificant they may seem, becomes a mere statistic in the annals of crime. Samuel Little's dark legacy will linger for years to come. Yet it's in the shadow of this legacy that we find the resolve to fight for justice, to remember the victims, and to strive for a world where such horror is nothing more than a distant memory. The chilling tale of Samuel Little is a stark reminder of the darkness that can lurk within human beings. This man, who confessed to more than 90 murders, has left an indelible mark on the annals of true crime. His story serves as a chilling testament to the depths of human depravity, a narrative that has both shocked and fascinated us. As we delve deeper into the world of true crime, we continue to uncover stories that challenge our understanding of human nature. Each tale, each confession, each victim adds another layer to our complex tapestry of crime and justice. Samuel Little's story is but one thread in this vast and intricate weave. Here at Twisted Criminals, we're committed to bringing you these stories, to shedding light on the darkest corners of our world. We invite you to join us as we continue to explore the depths of the criminal mind. Your engagement is what fuels our work. Your comments spark our discussions, your likes support our content, and your subscriptions help us reach more true crime enthusiasts like yourself. Thank you for joining us on this dark journey. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more chilling tales from Twisted Criminals.
Thing was done by manual strangulation. Did you ever use like a belt or cloth or
No
anything?
garrots and all that, no.
No ligatures at all?
My hands.
Just your hands?
And without that, I wouldn't want to do it.